Good morning, viewers, and welcome to Business Day Television Roundtable. My name is Joshua Bassi, and today we are focusing on the housing challenge in Lagos State, a state with about 3 to 4 million housing deficit. The state government has been trying so much to see how it can go around the challenge of rent and the house challenge of accommodation in Lagos State, but it doesn't seem to be working. So today we're going to be discussing the challenges that residents of Lagos State face in terms of having a decent accommodation. And this morning I have with me Mr. Chuka Uroko, who is the property editor of BusinessDay, as well as Mr. Valentine Onyeka, who is a senior broadcast journalist, also working with us here at BusinessDay Television. Gentlemen, you are welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Okay, so before we go into the discussion proper, let me say that, very recently, the Lagos State House of Assembly called on the state government to begin the implementation of the Lagos Tenacity Law, Lagos State Tenacity Law. Perhaps before we get into deeper discussion, I need to perhaps, let us go through some of the provision of the Lagos State Tenacity Law. Let me just quickly run through them. One is that advance rent restriction. This speaks to the fact that landlord cannot demand more than 1 year rent in advance from a new tenant. There's also the provision that notice of period for termination of tenancy. For instance, monthly tenancy, 1 month notice must be given, or 6 months must be given to tenant before you can terminate a tenancy agreement. There's also the prohibition of forceful eviction. Landlord must obtain a court order to evict a tenant. And then number 4, I'm just looking at the major provision of this Lagos State Tenacity Law. Agreement should outline rent, duration, responsibilities, and other terms. There's also the issue of course, there are quite a number of them, but let me specifically read this one. Section 37 of the Lagos State Tenacity Law, which was enacted in 2011, specifically prohibits unreasonable rent increases and offers legal protection to tenants. Landlords are expected to follow transparent processes when adjusting rent, and tenant can seek legal redress in cases of arbitrary hikes. Gentlemen, it would appear that this Lagos Tenacity Law is on the paper, because practically it doesn't seem to be working. And maybe I should start with Mr. Uroko. You are a property editor of BusinessDay, and you've been in this business of reporting property for a very long time. And of course, you know a little bit more about this Lagos Tenacity Law. Maybe I should ask you, why does it not seem to be working?
Thank you for that question. And let me correct one of the things, because it depends on the law you are referring to.
Lagos.
If you are talking about the Tenancy Law of 2011, the provision actually was that you cannot charge more than, the landlord cannot demand more than 3 months. And no tenant is allowed to pay more than 3 months. And in the event of anybody contravening this law, you'll be liable to either 100,000 naira fine, or you go for 6 months
imprisonment.
Then even at that, the law couldn't fly. And then the question anybody is asking is, why is it that Lagos has law for virtually everything that happens in the state, but you have never had any victim? Nobody have been prosecuted for any of these laws. Sometimes laws are made and some people cashing on them to enrich themselves. But this particular tenancy law couldn't fly because of a number of issues that are very, very clear to all of us. You cannot legislate on what you don't have. The central reason that law did not work was because government didn't provide any alternative. Oh, if you cannot get from the landlord, come out to our own and then get what you want. Of course, many of the analysts and property lawyers who talked on this particular law hinged the failure, in quotes, of that law on inability of the government, the Lagos State government, to offer tenants alternatives. As per say, landlord, we cannot rent from the landlord, come and rent government house. But you find that in this same state, government seems to be even competing with private sector developers. If you go to rent even government or buy from government property, it is almost sometimes costlier than that of the private developer. So the main reason that particular law couldn't work was because you can't just tell me how because it's a private enterprise. You can't dictate for me how I will sell the goods I've bought from somewhere, or rent the house I have erected for tenants, or sell it, whichever is the case. So it's just the absence of tenant. Then maybe we'll talk more as we go along on why that law didn't fly.
Okay, Valentine. Yes, you guys said yes. Government can detect. It's a private enterprise, like free market, so government can detect. But then, government still has a responsibility to protect, citizens from exploitation. Is that not the case?
Okay, so
even though yes, it's a private enterprise, yes, free market economy, and what have you, but government is still there to protect citizens from exploitation, because it seems like what we are having now is exploitation.
Well, I mean, so call it what you may. The truth of the matter is, in trying to look at this thing objectively, it will make more sense if we tell ourselves the truth. And the truth is, there is a huge lacuna in the whole system. And if you want to act as a curative measure regarding this issue surrounding tenancy law, and of course involving the landlords and the tenants, we should first and foremost look at the infrastructure itself that is on ground to enable tenants and landlords have a cohesive agreement and stick with it. We're having more tenant and landlord issues than we're having houses that are even available. And so if I'm a landlord, for instance, and I don't like what the government is doing, for instance, so what do? I have no say, right? How much am I spending to build a house? How much am I spending to put together the whole infrastructure? And so if this new arrangement from the government saying we're looking at 3 months, right? If it favors the tenant, it favors the landlord. And as our good friend rightly said regarding the structure itself, for me, I believe that we should track ourselves backwards first. Whatever happened to the Jack on the Estate package? Whatever happened to other schemes like that, where those who are low-income people can afford to have these houses? Let's call a spade a spade. So when this new development comes out now, a lot of questions will be asked. And I, for one, ask questions objectively, such a way that we can strike it at the middle and say, if you want us to follow through with this, then give us a breather. Now, from the angle of the tenant, how much is the tenant even earning? Not everybody earns a bulk package to now say they can pay off their rent and then relax without being, reminded that, look, there's an increase coming up. And mind you, if you say it is now 3 months, meaning to say that the man who is earning 100,000, like I said before, right, knows, okay, he's paying a small amount of money. Is he going to save at the end of the day? There are some people who get into some form of, agreement where there is coalition of funds in a group. At the end of the year, they give them their own money, right? And they rely on that money.
Cooperatives.
Yes, they rely on that money, right, as a bailout for them to pay their rent. So if, for instance, 3 of us are in a cooperative, for instance, and my money is supposed to be ready to collect in 12 months, and this new law is saying, look, landlords are only allowed to charge 3 months, then what happens to me? So you see the lacuna we're talking about now. So before we begin to look at the whole, matter, saying, is this viable or not, from the angle of a specialist who understands the area of real estate, right?
Okay, yeah. Let me bring in Chuka here, because
I don't know if I hit the nail on the head.
I get you, because what government is trying to do is just to strike a balance such that a tenant is not unnecessarily overburdened.
On the contrary, I think with this, the tenant will be overburdened.
No,
that's where I stand.
I'm coming. Let us look at what Desmond Elliott. Desmond Elliott is one of the lawmakers. I think he's representing Surulere constituency 1. Actually, during a debate at the Lagos State House of Assembly, there was something that Desmond Elliott actually complained about. He actually said that in Surulere, where in his constituency, that landlords are increasing rent by 100%.
And what's the cause?
Coming. That is to say that, for instance, if you were initially paying 1 million, let's say for maybe a 2-bedroom flat, so they will just jack it up by 2 million. If it was 3 million, just jack it up to. So I want to ask Mr. Uroku, doesn't government have the right to see that this kind of thing doesn't happen? And these rent increases are done without the normal maybe 6-month notice that you are supposed to, by law, you are supposed to give the tenant.
Let us understand why the increases are even taking place. There is high demand for housing in Lagos. There is limited supply of housing in Lagos State. This is a state of over 20 million people. And the available record shows us that over 80% of this population are living in rented accommodation. This is a state where you have over 3 million housing deficits. This is a state where the price of housing in Lagos, that is house price in this place, even what you used to rent a house here can buy you a house in other jurisdictions. So it is the demand pool coming from the populace that is pushing this price up on almost on daily basis. And no matter, because people must find a place to live. No matter what you put, oh, I'm not ready because I don't have the money. Someone else has that money to pay. Agreed. The landlords are actually being very, very exploitative. Very, very exploitative.
I'll make a case for the landlords.
Pardon?
I'll make a case for the landlords.
Okay, let me just land. The landlords are very exploitative because sometimes the rent increase doesn't justify even the property you are renting. A landlord has not rented or renovated his house in the past 5 years. No road had improved around, infrastructure improvement around the house. The yet he just hears that, oh, the house price or the rent in Lekki is now 2 million. And then somebody somewhere in Ajegule tells you that, oh, my own house, because it is the same house size, is also 2 million. These are some of the things government is trying to guard against. That you don't just have to exploit tenants anyhow. Because of the high demand for housing here, a lot of fraudulent activities are going on here. Yeah. And these are the things government is trying to avoid. Remember, the setting up of Lagos Real Estate Regulatory Authority is just for this kind of thing, for fraudulent activities, especially in the rental market. The problem we have in Lagos is not about the sales market, it's the rental market, because that is where a lot of activities are going on. After the rental market, you find the land market, because a lot of people, oh, let me start from somewhere. Everybody want to buy land, and because of the high demand in that segment of the market, a lot of things are going on. Oh, but these days things are improving anyway, because La Sorera is now trying to make sure that people are not unduly exploited. But why some of these things are not succeeding, as I've said earlier, is because, one, I have said earlier that government doesn't offer a cheaper or better alternative. Two, the demand is so high. Three, the population of the state is increasing almost on daily basis. This is the most highly urbanizing city you can ever think about, even in West Africa. According to the officials of the state, they tell you that about 6,000 people come here on daily basis, and over 50% of them don't go back. So the remainder of up to 3,000 people are looking for somewhere to live. And the person may have prepared in mind that the first thing I'm going to do when I come here is to rent a house. So for you as a sitting tenant, when the landlord sees that, oh, the man is coming from left and right, he will now come and tell you, very short notice, I want to renovate my house. My children are coming back from the United States, from London, from everywhere. And by the time you leave, I have a case where I was living before. I moved to where I'm staying now. The landlord just came and told me, Oga, one of my children that is in London is coming back and is going to use this your flat. Mm-hmm. Why is it this flat that the man is interested in? And the man is not even here. So the moment I left, the woman partitioned the 2-bedroom apartment I was living with into 2 separate apartments. I was paying 200, and then I decided to be charging 250 for each of the new apartments. So rather than my 200,000, the woman now getting 500,000.
Was there any renovation made?
No, he just partitioned it.
Just partitioned it.
From 2-bedroom to 1-bedroom self-contained, 2 1-bedroom self-contained. So and this is going on almost everywhere in Lagos.
Okay.
So these are some of the things that
because this program actually is also to try and see how we can also profile solution and what we think government can do. Maybe the private sector can also do to see how these challenges are addressed. So Onyeka, let me ask you, what do you think can be the way forward to help both the landlord, because again we must also forget.
Talk about the landlord.
Yeah, the landlord too also have their own challenges too. Yeah, so let's quickly look at what do you think can be done to such a way that the landlord benefits, the tenant benefits, and the government is able to also regulate in such a way that every party
is carried along.
I
mean, it's like they say, the beauty of the food is in the taste. You know what I mean? In other words, if we don't experiment, we'll not know if something good will come out of it. I believe that one of the great ways to tackle these kind of issues is to put in place town hall meetings. I will explain. You see, what your thoughts are about a particular issue might be different from the way the other person sees it. The way the tenants will see it might be different from the way federal government will see it. It will shock you if you throw this questionnaire out on a vox pop, right, and ask people on the street, would you prefer to have, 3 months tenancy or 1 year? They will tell you, no, leave it at 1 year. You see, if you ask the landlord, will you prefer tenancy to be given a tenancy fee or rent to be given to you every 3 months or 1 year? The landlord will see the benefit and tell you, you know what, let it remain at 3 months. Because like you rightly said, it's an opportunity for him to come and give you an excuse and tell you he wants to partition or he wants to do some modification, thereby putting you on the tight corner to collect money. So, I mean, not to talk too much, one of the ways to harness, right, to prefer solutions would be town hall meetings in different districts. Let the commissioner for housing, those who are responsible from the government, not just go to TV and radio alone, but send most of these people who are in charge of developing the areas, right? They have those council members there. Send them there. Create town hall meetings, right? Where we have stakeholders, the tenants, the landlords, the building material sellers. Because don't forget, cost of building of infrastructure falls on the cost of building materials. How much is cement? I said it here the other day, right? Prior to 2025, cement used to cost within the space of say 6 or 3 to 4,000. Now it's more than 10,000. So what are we saying? As we engage people at that level, right? We also make sure we work hand in hand again with NOA, National Orientation Agency, and say, look, let us educate people about this thing, and say it is better, right, to allow the golden egg lay the golden goose, goose lay the golden egg, than want to kill the golden goose, hoping you will see egg inside.
Thank you. In just 2 seconds, Mr. Uruku, let's hear you. What do you think should be the best way forward?
I think your 2 seconds is too small, too short. But I would like to tell you that I would like to say that the solution lies with the government, squarely with the government. Okay. If Lagos State, for instance, wants to address issue of high rent, First of all, infrastructure is critical. Because if I live in Badagry, for instance, where house rent is low, where land is cheap, and I can get to Ikorodu where I am in 1 hour, not to bother. Everybody shouldn't be at the city center. So government has to
centralize,
not necessarily centralize, but create infrastructure that will enable mobility. People have to move. People can move from wherever they are. Secondly, government can reduce whatever it is, whatever it takes to perfect your line titles that will enable you to build houses. Government can decide to decentralize everything within the city center.
That's what I was saying.
They can go to Badagry, go to Ekpe, go to Ikorodu, open up some of these areas and make land easily accessible to people. So people should even start thinking of owning their own houses instead of renting. So the pride of owning a house is, you cannot just imagine it.
What about mortgage?
So
is it to access
we are talking about Lagos State. There are some of these things that are within the purview of the federal government. Okay, government in Lagos State have actually taken some steps to address this, especially their rent-to-own housing scheme, where you rent a house and then pay rent over time, and then at the end of a stipulated period of time, you own the house. But that is not working because sometimes where we are not actually, they are not succeeding. They attach so much what they call equity contribution to it, and some of these equity contribution, not many people can afford the equity contribution. Maybe time would allow us, as you are just becoming to it, but I want to say that government has a lot to do to make this happen.
All right.
And cage the raging landlords.
Thank you, gentlemen. I think this is where we'll draw the curtain. But just before we close, one of the lawmakers in Lagos State, Shabi Adebola, also reminded the Lagos State government that it has a responsibility to build low-cost housing for those who may not be able to afford high rent. And so that's the one area where the Lagos State government can also come in. So thank you, viewer. This is where we draw the curtain on the BDTV roundtable. Thank you so much for viewing. Tomorrow is another day.